But yes, now we reach current day. Current day, uh, and Avi Yemini wants to. So I'm gonna play a bit. So Avi here plays most of everything that like pretty much everything that occurs. So there's no reason to watch the original because not much was like taken out of context, but there's one thing that we will go back to the original because I think he leaves out a little bit of context that we'll get to. But the context of this clip, which is the last shot fired in this ongoing, I would say, one-sided conflict of Abby just being a grifter about this. Jim mentions it on his, so he has a podcast that's called I Don't Know About That with Jim Jefferies, and he's at the beginning of his show talking about tours he's going to be going on, and he then brings up the Avi Yemini and talks about it briefly, like for a minute on his podcast. Avi then catches wind that it was talked about it on the podcast, and then immediately put out this video about his ongoing feud with Jim Jefferies. So never gonna watch.
We had a guy on our TV show called Avi a couple of years ago, and me, this guy.
This update I share with absolute joy because for those of you who've been following me from early 2019, you'll certainly remember how I exposed a guy called Jim Jefferies for the fake news he really is when I secretly recorded our interview that he then deceptively edited to suit his agenda. And when I showed the world what he had done, instead of just removing the defamatory segment and apologizing for his disgusting behavior, he hid like the absolute coward he is. And then Jim went as far as banning anyone from his social media pages who dared to bring it up.
I will say, it is super weird for Avi to be making this a talking point when I have been blocked by both Ezra and Sheila Gunn Reid. What? Can Ezra and Sheila not defend themselves? For my critical attacks on Rebel News that they needed to block me? Like it's the same stupid shit that, like, this is the whole like right-wing grift, right? Which is like if you block me, it's because you're a anti-free speech person, but like we can block you because of course you should block people that are harassing you, which is like their defense to blocking people, right? Just fucking hypocrisy. How long has Jeffrey been in hiding? Apparently 2 years.
Then he ran away and never mentioned my name again until now. And how glorious it is to know that I've been living rent-free in his head for the past 2.5 years. But in typical Jim Jefferies style,
Jesus Christ,
he's taken a shot at me and distorted the truth again.
So you said Jesus Christ. I want you to remember when he said rent-free in his head. And I that's going to be
good Lord,
important, I think, for a few seconds. Important context, because like when you say rent-free, what does that imply? That implies that like the person's sitting around stewing like, oh my god, Abby, right? Like, and it's almost like an irrational like thing, as opposed to having reason for thinking about something, right? At least that's what I think the term rent free kind of like suggests.
Yeah, like consistent
And like what I mean by irrationality there is more of like nothing has happened to make you continue thinking about them. You're just thinking about them because like you're just like, I can't believe Abby got away with that exposed video 2 years ago. Like some weird thing like that. But we'll put it on pause. We'll see
waking
how
up every night in a cold sweat thinking about, Avi Yemini posted, recorded on his phone.
Like the better example, it would be like Steven Crowder, right? Like Sam Cedar was living rent free in Steven Crowder's brain, which is why Steven Crowder was monitoring Sam's show to make sure that Sam went live so he wouldn't jump on the thing, right? Like That is the perfect distillation of the living rent free. Sam had permanent residence within the skull of Stephen Crowder.
From the comfort and refuge of his own studio and not to my face. So watch me tear apart his laughable claims. Try to enjoy the takedown as much as I enjoyed creating it, and then share the heck out of it to remind the world what a lying coward Jim Jefferies really is.
Ah, me, this guy.
So yeah, so two cars. When someone is harassing you, bringing up their harassers, having some rent, yeah, that your comment is going to be more relevant than you think.
If you have no idea what I'm talking about, if you either haven't seen the expose or you don't remember what happened back in 2019, you can still find the segment from the time by going to jimjeffriesexposed.com. But I'll
To
summarize.
my face.
I was invited onto Jim's show to talk about all sorts of issues from an Australian conservative perspective. I agreed to be on his show on two conditions. One, that he doesn't include in that segment neo-Nazis. And two, that he doesn't cut my answers from one question and paste them after another, because I'd seen that he'd done that previously to Jordan Peterson.
So again, we have no evidence that he did that to Jordan Peterson, and that was not done to him. Like, the answers were to the same question, just they removed some of the filler, which you could say that might be deceptive editing, but I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's just editing an interview.
Yeah.
Also, do you think that Jim Jefferies went out of his way to, like, pay for a URL that references Avi Yemini?
Like Jim Jefferies did?
Like,
Oh,
well,
yeah, the Jim
do you think that Jim
Jefferies
Jefferies did that, like, the way that Avi Yemini did? Like,
Well, again, like, let's be clear here. I've never seen Avi Yemini on any of these fucking shows except for talking of, like, I scrolled through, like, his appearances on Ruben and shit like that were all around this Jim Jefferies thing. Like, this is his one, like, monetary, like, horse, you know? So, of course, he's got the Jim Jefferies Exposed website, because it's his whole fucking shtick.
I feel bad for that. Like, all he's got going for him.
I mean, the only other thing is that he works for Rebel, right? Like, that's the only other thing.
This is his, like, this is my most groundbreaking story ever. I went on an interview with someone and he edited it. He didn't post the whole interview. Like,
Yeah, it is. It's really
that's your
fucking sad.
story.
That's kind of why
That's
I
your
wanted to
claim to
go on this
fame.
journey, because, like, what it in ways a tragic story, even though he's a shitty fucking person. You know what I mean? It's just like this is
Yeah.
his work in the past 2 years, 2-3 years, being mocked for being an Islam.
I don't know
bigot,
how he, like,
and then never letting it go. Which, like,
I don't know how he, like, looks in the mirror in the morning and is like, today's gonna be the day that Jim Jefferies finally gets his comeuppance. Like,
Well, it's the irony
how
here.
sad.
Like, we were just talking about rent free. How many times has Avi Yemini talked about Jim Jefferies in the past 3 years? And he even admitted that Jim Jefferies has never talked about this until today.
Oh my god. Avi Yemini's made his entire fucking career out of the fact that he was correctly shown as an Islamophobe on a shitty comedy show.
Yeah.
3 years ago. And that's what he has based his entire life and personality around. And then he blames the comedian, or claims the comedian is obsessed with him.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Oh my god.
It's so amazing.
Imagine my shock. After assuring me they wouldn't do either, they did both. And to make matters far worse, they held on to my interview for months, waiting for the perfect time to drop it. You know,
So They held on to it for months, waiting for the perfect time to drop it. It was the first episode of season 3, which means like usually if you have a show, like you would think they book like a lot of the content prior and have it all ready to go before the season starts, right? So they probably had a hard start date for season 3, and so they probably weren't holding it for months. It just so happened that in between shooting your interview and then airing the segment on the rise of white nationalism, a white nationalist created or carried out an anti-Islamic attack, and you were on the show specifically as an anti-Islam bigot. Like, I'm sorry, life just worked out that way, Avi, but I highly doubt there was some like manipulated plan in the background here. That they specifically waited till Christchurch, like, you know what? They were holding on to it, then waited for the massacre to happen, and then we're like, now we'll release it. What a fucking guy.
When this vile human thought would be the perfect time? After the tragic massacre in Christchurch. Yes, you heard that right. He ran an interview which was conducted months before the Christchurch tragedy. He ran it after that attack, alluding that I was somehow part of radicalizing that nut job that killed all those innocent people.
And what are
Like, again, like I already pointed it out earlier, but like that's still possible even though it was recorded beforehand. You know what I mean? Like, if you are the force that radicalized this individual before they carried out an attack, it doesn't matter when in the past they recorded you. You still could have influenced them, right? Like, I'm not saying there's a one-to-one, like this person watched your content, Avi, but the point being is like, and actually, don't we have knowledge of what content that person watched? I wonder if they actually did watch Avi. Might be interesting to look. Because I do know there was some evidence that they watched at least Rebel News adjacent stuff, if not Rebel News itself.
the people who may have radicalized him saying?
Luckily, though, I was wise enough to arm myself with a hidden camera to the interview, and the rest is history, which again you can catch at jimjeffriesexposed.com. Now, once I exposed Jim Jefferies, he refused to remove the segment or even own up to any naughty behaviour. Quite the opposite, actually. Jim blocked me and anyone else who mentioned it on any of his socials. So, with no other options, I decided I'll try confront him personally. And I travelled all the way to the US, where they informed on me, and they had the FBI waiting for me at LAX airport.
Look at how like wacky he looks at this moment.
Okay, so that's why he wasn't allowed into the country. He was there to stalk
Yeah,
a famous person
pretty much.
explicitly, to the point where the famous person knew that he was there to stalk them, so he contacted the authorities to say like, "Hey,
And you
I'm
know
about to get stalked and like possibly violently confronted."
and you say that to the FBI and then say, "Oh, and by the way, this person is a convicted felon." Or maybe not
You have
felon, I don't know.
felonies in Australia.
Well, no, he was a convicted wife beater. Like he did the thing. He was convicted, charged. So he committed a violent act, was convicted for it, and is now stalking you. You have a bit of a claim to that, I think, in terms
Yeah.
of safety.
And I was then deported upon arrival. So I decided to go to Israel, where he had a show, because you know they can't get me expelled from there. But when I
Like, how does this not seem like stalker behavior to this? Like, even him laying it all out, right? I went here.
How
and
many
I got deported, and I went
literal thousands of dollars did he spend in his obsession with? I've already forgotten. Jim Jefferies. I had to look at the title to remember his name. Like, it's like $1,400 to fly from the East Coast America to Israel. Imagine how much it is to fly from Australia to the US. And then for like I imagine Americans make you pay for the deportation if you can. Like he has to fly from the US back to Australia and then he flies from there to Israel. Like
I mean, two cars said it here.
you
And
have
the thing about that video too is like, so like you're talking about all the money that would have cost, but he used it as a grifting opportunity. He was telling people to like, I gotta go do this like reporting, so please pay for me. This is like the same like I'm pretty sure at this whole time he was a Rebel employee, although he also worked for this other TR company, right? But like, or no, he's I think he's only been on the Rebel for a year, so it's like maybe in the middle of this somewhere he became a Rebel employee. But he was making videos telling people to like, please donate to me so I can have the money to go. Just like Mocha and Lincoln J were like, please, Rebel viewers, pay for us so we can drive to Montreal, right? Like this is what they do. So like,
I guess
he probably didn't pay for it out of pocket.
what I mean yeah, but what I mean is less that like he paid for it out of pocket and more that he still spent thousands of dollars regardless of whose money it was and days or weeks of planning in his obsession with Jim Jefferies. And
Yep.
then like Jim Jefferies is not even living rent free. Like it seems like and being paid in this case. Like
If he's correct, this whole obsession caused him a heart attack. That's what he was saying. I mean, he filed his lawsuit after this, and here's the thing: is he never mentions the lawsuit in this video, so I don't even know if the lawsuit is ongoing or if it was immediately dismissed or nothing. I don't know like how to search for lawsuits. I think it was filed out of New York, but I only gained that information out of a Reddit post from someone else and I don't know where they got that information. So I don't know how to like search a New York database to see if there's an ongoing lawsuit between Avi Yemini and Jim Jefferies, But like it could have been dismissed already. It's been over a year.
I mean, if it was in New York, then it was probably dismissed because Avi Yemini can't enter the country. Like,
Yeah. So I will say Jim Jefferies is now a permanent resident in America, and I think he has American citizenship. I think. So that's why Jim Jefferies is living in New York, I think, which is why Avi Yemini is suing there, I'm guessing, but I don't know how that aspect of lawsuits works.
Arrived
it'd
there.
be a very funny legal precedent to set. Like,
Yeah, I don't
people
know.
who have like celebrity crushes are allowed to sue the celebrities for any stress or damage or financial loss caused by their obsession.
Well, I would like to even see what the claim is. Like, I'm guessing he sued him for defamation, something to do with the editing of that clip. But even if you want to claim that it was deceptive editing, I don't think it was defaming because what Avi said on that segment was shit that he actually said. But and it's stuff that he actually believes. There was nothing in that segment where I saw it was like that's something that Avi doesn't actually believe. So I don't know how successful it would be, even if it does work in how you're sort of discussing whether it could go through or not. Let's carry on.
His security team tried to intimidate me out of filming. And when that didn't work, they set up a decoy vehicle to look like they were dropping him off. And then on the side there, they snuck around with another car to the other backstage entrance, all to avoid me. Jimmy, why are you hiding? Why are you coward, Jimmy? Why'd you edit the video?
So in this longer footage, that security guard came up to him and said, we got the impression that you might be showing up. And they then erected this like fence you see here after Avi showed up. So this fence was not here initially. They erected it solely for Avi. And then Avi was like, got distracted by the decoy car. Jim Jefferies sneaks in the side and he starts shouting at him. Like, this is harassment and stalking. Like, legit. Legit.
Look at that. They've done a decoy there. How scared they are. They've set up another van here just so Jimmy doesn't have to answer questions. What a coward. So as you can see, it's been a long, hard road trying to get Jim Jefferies even to acknowledge what happened, let alone take any sort of responsibility. He has never said a word until now on his podcast. Have a listen.
We had a guy on our TV show called Avi a couple of years ago, and me, this guy. He says we edited.
So, I just wanted to show here because he plays from here on, plays the whole thing. But he did miss the contact, right? Because when I saw this on Avi's show, I was like, what prompted him to start talking about it, right? So we're gonna skip it a bit. So they're just talking about like going on tour. I don't know. I can't remember exactly where it is. So we'll just start it. These are the two people who co-host his. I don't know about that with Jim Jefferies show. So, and so we might not get the jokes because they're talking about tours and shit.
Comedy show.
Isn't that the funnest way? like the only people who buy individual seats at comedy shows are some backpacker who's just gotten into town and needs a night out.
Or comedy critics.
Or you split up and you're like, where are you sitting? You're like, I'm 16 rows behind you. Okay. And then they laugh and they have to turn around every time. That was like you.
Or you do what you do on a plane. You get in and you go, yeah, my wife's sitting over there. Yeah. If she could move over with me, blah, blah. So I've had the standard going to Australia. I get.
Oh wait, today's the 25th.
Yeah.
So you're leaving in 2 weeks because you have to quarantine, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
So I get the standard people coming to see me. Whenever you sell a big tour out, I get the death threats as well. I've been getting death threats since back in the days from the gun control routine. You know, that's pretty standard for me. We had a guy on our TV show called Avi a couple of years ago, and fuck me, this guy.
The only reason he's talking about Avi is to bring up the fact that he receives death threats. And the direction he's receiving these death threats are from the right wing. Because it had to do with gun control and then it had to do with Avi. You know, important context that Avi just mysteriously leaves off at the beginning of him getting into this. So I just wanted to play that. Important context.
In the wrong way and all this type of stuff. His answer was the same either way.
Wait, what? My answer was the same either way. That literally makes no sense, Jim. If it was the same either way, why'd you have to edit it? Let's just fact check you now, Jim. This is what you ran, mate.
I might sound like a hippie saying this. What gives anyone the right to tell anyone where they can and can't live?
When you import this culture, what do you think's going to happen? Australia's going to end up the same shithole that they came from, that they were escaping. Okay, now let's watch how I actually answered that question.
This.
What gives anyone the right to tell anyone where they can and can't live? Really?
Okay,
Borders, I know borders, but wouldn't it just be nice if we got to a place in society where we had a utopia, where we all just lived as
on a level, I agree.
You may say I'm a dreamer.
I think most people, sensible people would agree with you in theory.
Yeah.
But in practice, it's not. It goes against human nature. It just doesn't work. No, mate. My answer wasn't the same at all, was it? Anyways, let's keep going.
Then he put out a clip and he edited me very, very badly, doing exactly what he said that I did.
Hold on again. I did what I said you did. I think we need to fact check you again there, old mate. My issues were that you included neo-Nazis in the segment. You tied it to the Christchurch massacre. You cut my answers and pasted them to suit your agenda. So, no.
So you know what's fucking weird about that framing? Is he couldn't just say, you took me out of context, because that is exactly what he did to Jim Jefferies. Now he's saying that you edited things to suit your agenda or something. No, It's about taking someone out of context. I mean, like, technically, Avi did edit that clip to suit his agenda, did he not? Did he not do that in his video? Like, it's fucking wild. Jim Jefferies had the point, though. We watched that other person who actually purchased the footage and went through it. It clearly was taken out of context.
I didn't include neo-Nazis in my expose.
Right.
I didn't
That's
tie
what
it to
Jim Jefferies is
Christchurch,
referring
and
to.
I wasn't interviewing you. So how the heck could I have pasted your answers from one question to another? I did, though, provide examples where you said some pretty shocking stuff that if I was the one interviewing, I could have done a far worse number on you. I think I ate the baby. It turned out it did eat the baby.
If it ain't a bloody Muslim baby, it would have vomited.
No, that's
not that shit, isn't it? I'm only joking.
If anyone sees the full footage, they know I did nothing wrong. If you see the full interview, and I have the full interview, and Avi released the full interview on his Patreon, allegedly the full interview on his Patreon, which I think 70 people. I'm being
No, at
serious.
the time it was like 12. I think.
12 people?
Yeah.
So better than ours.
Yeah, better. So about 12
some
people
tips.
He's
watched
doing
it.
something right, guys.
But like there was at the time there was news channels and stuff like that were contacting us saying they were going to do stories, and then we just sent them the full interview, and then they apologized and didn't run the story. So to anyone who's going to come and try to disrupt the shows, or if Avi's going to come with his camera and act like he's a big news channel all by himself, my answer's the same every single time. Release the full video, Avi. Release the entire interview.
Firstly,
So, I do like this challenge. Release the entire video, but I like the ribs about the Patreon, because Avi does in fact only have 70 patrons on Patreon.com, and the only thing that's really posted is the fucking Jim Jefferies thing, and I'm like, why? Like, is it a monthly donation to Avi? And why? I guess like you could be monthly donating him for this content, but then like for someone who like has been doing this for a long time and gets like 70,000 views on a lot of their Rebel content, to only have 70 patrons seems a bit weird to me. There's just something weird going on. But we'll see what happens.
no, your answer is not the same every single time. You've literally said nothing about what happened until now. But we know that you and the truth don't get along very well, do you? What I don't get, though, is why do you need me to re-release it when you claim to have it? You could simply publish it yourself. By the way, people can still go and see it on Patreon. I've never even removed it, except, spoiler alert, it proves that you cut the interview, and it doesn't tie me to Christchurch or neo-Nazis. But you already know that, don't you?
And if you do release the full interview onto YouTube, not onto Patreon, if you release the full interview onto YouTube, you can come on this podcast and I will give you airtime. I'll talk to you for 45 minutes and we can discuss what happened. Otherwise, I don't believe I've done anything wrong.
Okay. Now, and here I'm wondering, I mean, Avi made an interesting point, which is like, yeah, Jim Jefferies could just release the footage, right? And why doesn't Jim just release it? And so I'm like, okay, that's weird. But Avi knows this, and like, why is Avi talking about this?
Give me airtime. You're so cute, Jim. My original report got 2.6 million views on YouTube alone until, for some bizarre reason, it was pushed to the bottom of the search when anyone looks us up. That's why I took the liberty of creating the URL jimjeffriesexposed.com to help make it easy for people to find it again. Anyway.
Right, so the thing that Rebel News does all the time, that's the reason. Like, that is not the reason. The reason is there's a YouTube conspiracy that has, like, made it so your stupid video becomes, like, really low in the YouTube algorithm. Of course. I also love this, like subscriber flexing. Like, oh, I have so much more subscribers than you. And viewers, and, like, my content gets viewed more. I just want to say, like, it is true that if you compare these short little clip segments that Avi does, which receive, like, I think this one's now at like 70,000 views, and you compare that to Jim Jefferies' podcast on YouTube, which has 30,000 views, yes, Avi seems to have more, let's say, audience traffic, sure, on YouTube if you make that comparison. But Jim Jefferies is an internationally known celebrity who, before I showed the clip where this whole thing started.
Good evening, all.
Good evening, Progressive American. Thank you for the subscription. You've missed a hell of a show right now. But good evening. We're almost nearing the end of it too. But so he was talking about this tour he's going on, and one of the things he was saying is that the tour is completely sold out because a lot of people love Jim Jefferies, apparently. Regardless about how we personally feel about his content, a lot of people seem to love Jim Jefferies. So it's like weird to me. And also, I will say, Jim Jefferies has had several well-received television programs and is currently working on a pilot that I think is being picked up by NBC. So, like, talk about fucking clout. Like, of course, Jim Jefferies is the bigger get than fucking Avi Yemini. Let's just let's put that to rest, all right? These, like, conservatives, they're fucking... it's like, even with the Steven Crowder thing, right? Because Steven Crowder was like, I've got 6 million subs on YouTube. And it's like, okay, Sam Cedar is an MSNBC correspondent. He's a voice actor for shows like Bob's Burger. So, like, okay, he gets he gets 1 million subs on his YouTube channel. All of a sudden, that makes him, like, below Steven Crowder. Which, obviously, it's just an excuse because, as we're going to find out, there's probably reasons Avi wouldn't want to go on Jim Jefferies' show.
Wait, I don't need your airtime, mate. Your little podcast about me got a measly 33,000 views in total. I bet this video you're watching right now will have, let's say, 10, 20, 100 times the views in the same amount of time. Nevertheless, I thank you for your offer, and yes, you did do something wrong. In fact, you did 3 things wrong, and you're not helping yourself here. Only, I understand why you're so triggered by what happened, because at the end of the day, you did end up losing your primetime show on Comedy Central a little after my expose. I guess that probably explains
Let's see what that says.
Central, because at the end of the day, you did end up losing your prime.
The Jim Jefferies show cancel after 3 seasons. What happens now? The new Comedy Central canceling the Jim Jefferies show broke a few weeks ago, leaving some audience puzzled by the decision. So here's the thing. I started, like, digging around in here, and the only thing that I can find for why the show was canceled was that he decided to go work on a new sitcom for NBC. So Avi is making it about, like, because I exposed you, that's why you got canceled. When really it was probably Jim Jefferies going, I have more money to make over there. And yes, Progressive did live in a city where a tornado hit recently, and thankfully you survived. And I'm sorry for your community right now, which is probably trying to get back up on your feet. Because I feel like, didn't you say like a bunch of homes were destroyed and stuff? Yeah, it destroyed several houses and injured several people. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're okay, Progressive. Glad that you're okay.
Sometimes show on Comedy Central a little after my expose. I guess that probably explains why you're stuck doing this lame little podcast now.
Also, I should add this.
A lame little podcast, I might add, that has a ton of celebrities coming on it constantly. I don't know, for what it's worth. But here's, I think this is worth focusing on. I don't know what to make of this. So I'm curious what y'all think. Okay, here it comes.
Also, I should add this. release the full interview. Even when he released the full interview on his Patreon for the
cuts.
12 people, there was a cut. There was a cut in there that would ruin probably his personal life. But I'm not going to release that because I'm not a rat. But release the full interview. If there's a cut in that full interview in the beginning or the little bit in the middle, then no dice. But if you do, come on the podcast. We'll have you on and we'll have a chat.
What? What do you think is in the middle of this video that Avi Yemini cut out? I
want to know. I have no fucking idea. But I would like to know. Like, if it's not the fucking, oh, I wear my yarmulke just as like an Idpol shield. What could it be, Avi? What is it? What is it? Tell us. Tell us, Avi. Tell us. No, seriously, tell us. What is it?
Nick, it can't be the Jewish bit because that was in the footage that was online that the other guy got. So it's not that. It has to be something else. And part of me was like, let's think about like Avi's narrative here. Like, you're already deceptively editing stuff. Why the fuck would you leave this in? Why would you expose your audience to this? That you said something on here that Jim Jefferies is calling you out for editing it out. And here is Avi's response. And let me know if you feel any more comfort in how Avi responds to this.
I reckon this is the funniest part of Jim's little rant. Firstly, I never got to thank you personally for becoming a patron, so thank you, Jimmy. Yes, there was one cut there, although you and I both know that that minor cut of about 3 words, it's only because I can't legally publish those words, though there is nothing stopping you from sharing the full video without that insignificant edit. So instead
What?
It's an insignificant edit, but I legally can't publish it. Avi.
Both wife beater and domestic abuser are only 2 words, so I can't think of anything.
3 words that are illegal. What the fuck did he say?
Evicted wife beater.
And furthermore, he just said that Jefferies could release it. Jefferies, like, fucking release the 3 words.
I want to know what the 3 words were, Jim. Come on.
Everybody tweet at Jim Jefferies saying, what are the 3 words?
Release the 3 words.
Release the 3 words. What are they? And why would he include this? Why? Like, I do not understand this. He did not have to mention this.
Yeah,
He did not have to
he
bring
could
it up.
just cut it out, but now I need to know what the fuck.
Yeah. Let's see the wrap up.
instead of giving me an ultimatum that you know I can't legally do, why don't you just share whatever proves your innocence? No, you don't need to answer, Mr. I'm not a rat. The bottom line is, I don't have to prove anything.
That felt nervous.
You do. No one believes a word you say, mainly because you banned and blocked anyone who asked about it publicly. I'm not referring to your mainstream media journalist mates that you allegedly sent it to privately. I'm talking about real people. They know that you're a disgrace. Let's just remember the first public appearance
Isn't this creepy?
on a show that you
Camera
couldn't ban
slowly
people from
zooming in on
after you
it.
tried to
He's like
screw
doing-
me. That's right. Remember when you went on to Conan's and you couldn't restrict people, you couldn't block or disable comments or reactions? There was suddenly 15,000 dislikes and almost 4,000 comments, all calling you out. So no, mate. I don't need to break
Yeah,
the
because
law
all you
to
did
come
was
onto
just
your
fucking
sad
direct
little
people, you
podcast.
fuck. Like, no one's gonna watch fucking Jim Jefferies clips on Conan on YouTube. What? We're not fucking 50 years old, Avi. It's you just directing your little douchebag fucking Twitter trolls these fucking random YouTube videos. Why are you sitting there acting all fucking smug? What is it with these fucking people
It
who
doesn't-
always want to act like a big tough man and then go home and beat their wife and get arrested? Like, you have nothing. You're fucking railing at a goddamn international comedian who gets invited to play all over the world, and you're acting like you have the moral high ground when you said something you shouldn't have legally said. Avi, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I feel like this is him trying to threaten Jim Jefferies. Like, look at like him, the way he's talking, and the camera is like slowly moving in, and he's basically being like, you wouldn't release the whole footage because on the whole footage it says things that I already pointed out you were bigoted and you don't want that out in the public, even though it's already out in the public. We already discussed them, right? But he's like, you don't want it released, and if you release it, like, I'll send my people after you. My people will come after you. Like, it has like a feeling of a threat, because I don't think Avi Yemini actually wants the uncut footage out there.
No, he absolutely doesn't. And like this idea, like again, I've been watching Jim Jefferies for years. Jim Jefferies has said some fucking shit. He does not care. Like that whole like drawing the prophet and all the shit he said. He doesn't care if that's out there.
No.
He doesn't fucking give a shit.
I mean,
He said worse. He said worse on Netflix specials that you could go freely watch. He does not care.
Here, let's I should so Connor, Progressive American, Jim Jefferies, release the full interview of Avi, please. We need to hear it. Hashtag free the footage. Release it, Jim. Become the rat we knew you always were. I should add him. Here we go. At Jim Jefferies. Here we go. There you go. Free the footage. Release it at Jim Jefferies. Become the rat we knew you always were. We need the footage. Bring Abby down. Okay, there we go. Oh.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll all get blocked by Jim Jefferies now. Jody for calling him a rat.
He called himself a rat.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, be the rat, because he said I'm not going to release it because releasing it means I'm a rat. But like, do it.
Because everybody already knows you're a lying bloody coward. If you enjoy watching Jim squirm,
I want to know what the 3 words are. Oh my god. So
Imagine being like, oh, my opponent's squirming as they're raking in multi-million-dollar contracts and being invited to speak places and shit, Avi. What is this copium you're huffing?
Like, did Jim
Did Avi say I love you?
Who? Did Avi say
Did Avi say I love you? Yeah, that's 3 words that could have been cut.
Oh,
I guess not for legal purposes.
No, it's got to be something legally. Like
Avi did 9/11.
I was gonna say something like denying his conviction, but like,
Yeah, like I can't.
I don't know. Like, what the hell is it? I need to know.
Did he like plead guilty to the thing? Could he have like admitted to the wife? Could it have been something like a anti-Semitic thing he said?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Avi was convicted. I don't know if he pled guilty.
The interesting thing is that it's hard to find good information. I do know that it's true, but a lot of neo-Nazis have run with the story as well. In particular, because they agree with everything that Avi says, but don't like him because he's Jewish. So there's a ton of super right wing content that's talking.
Good.
But as for the other thing, like, it's hard to find information. Like, I know a lot of these things, it's usually to protect the victim in this case. Where, like, the little that I've read about the case, which we've read it on the show before, like, what happened to the way his ex-wife describes what happened is fucking terrifying. I should probably
Honestly, I bet Avi said the N-word. That's what I think happened.
3 words though?
I hate. There you go. That's 3 words.
Yeah.
That's 3 words. That would
Fair enough.
end your personal life, wouldn't it?
Is that illegal? The question.
I think he said like he couldn't legally say it. I feel like he probably couldn't legally said that with his contract, right? Like Ezra probably
He could
has
legally say that in Australia. Come on.
fair enough. No, not Australia. No.
Oh yeah.
Does Australia have hate speech laws?
What about what if he
I don't think so.
denied the Holocaust? Maybe, but like he
Oh.
wouldn't do.
There's no way that's illegal in Australia either.
Yeah.
I hope he does. There's a racial discrimination act.
So
They have
he was
hate
only
crimes.
fined. He was only fined $3,600, which is depressing, given the details. For example, it describes it here that he threw a cutting board at her, and then it said, the wife said, "It was like I didn't exist as a human being. I was just a vessel for his hatred. He terrorized me. I can't imagine how it would be possible for me to have a relationship." That's what she said during the court.
Mhm.
What I will never forget is that he didn't flinch when it happened. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just walked by. I was left to tend to my own injuries and finish making the dinner. Avi Yemini. What a disgusting, terrible human being that apparently said something illegal on the Jim Jefferies show, which is why Jim Jefferies should release the tape. Release it. If it's going to destroy him, fucking release it. This guy deserves to be destroyed. Ruin his life. Do it, please.
Hello, my rebels. Hello, my rebels. I'm a good boy. I'm a weirdo.